All right. I think we've got everything on and going, Greg. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do we get a weather update? How much snow has fallen?
Oh, it's
If
still
I
snowing.
Yeah.
Since we last talked. The funniest thing, though, is that I still decry people that say, "Well, it has to be a certain temperature to snow." So it's 5 below. It snowed overnight. It's 5 now. It's snowing now. My hands are still cold just from going out and starting Shelly's truck, and I have to
Oh my
plow
gosh.
between our Mason Harriman meetings. If you get too much snow, it goes up over the plow blade, and then what
Yeah.
happens is each subsequent pass, you're actually tramping down the snow and
Oh God.
creating
Yeah.
ice, right?
Yeah.
So no, I love it. I mean, poor Lanny. Lanny got called in again to the airport this morning, and Lanny hates snow and he hates cold.
Well,
Why would you live
why
in
would you live
Gunnison?
in, well,
You know what I'm saying?
I
So
mean,
I don't want to ask him that because he'll take a
yeah.
swing at me.
Yeah.
He's half
Yeah.
drunk all the time anyway. But
S-
the idea is that think about that. I live here because I love that, and there's a certain amount of insulation and isolation that goes with weather
Of
like this,
course. Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
it
you have to
does.
kind of be part of that team
Well, you got to,
to
yeah, you have to be on that frequency to be able, things are going to go slower. Some things
totally
are going to
agree.
shut down. You got to be able to,
Yep.
fend for yourself for a couple of days if necessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's that, which is the exact opposite of people where I live. But
Yeah, you live sort of and I'm not slamming this Ibiza, but you live sort of a Mediterranean lifestyle there. But the cool
but not
thing
in the
is that you've
Mediterranean.
survived. Yeah, exactly. You've survived so much that it's good for you, and you
Yeah.
thrive.
Why
You
I
see, I
yeah.
stick out like a sore dick when I go to California all the time, and people are pointing and going, "Who's that?" Gigantic man.
Yeah.
I just don't fit. But
Yeah.
here I fit fine. I really do.
Well, on that note, go ahead and jump into
And that's our
today.
topic.
Yeah. So, first off, thanks everyone for tuning in and listening.
Yeah.
We got some updates and big changes coming up real soon, so you're all going to find out
Yes.
about that. We're super excited for it, and it's going to be great 2024, which is weird saying that every year when it gets another year later. But today we're talking about, I mean, stuff that we talk about indirectly on every podcast or everything we do,
Yeah.
really about humans being on transmit, and we'll give some examples and talk about some specific things about it. But obviously, everyone who listens to us knows we know that's something we kind of say all the time. People are always on transmit. You got to tune into the right frequency. So we'll kind of give some examples of that, but it's sometimes more powerful than I think than people even realize. I mean, you can get into the minutia. Some people are more on transmit than others. I love it when I kind of try to post some of this stuff on social media or as an example, and then you get a comment from someone who's like, "Yeah, no, not me. I do this." It's I'm like, "You're on Instagram
You
right now,
just did it. Exactly.
commenting like this is." Everything. And so if we learn to sort of decipher that, you can find out a lot of meaning. And then we talk about how people get some of that stuff wrong and they jump to unreasonable conclusions. But I kind of want to start it off today because there's a couple stories to start off with. One being, a very serious one. If everyone remembers the shooting in Lewiston, Maine, was that just last year? Guy killed 18 people at a bowling alley and then killed himself. But there's an article. I know you sent me this article, and obviously when the
Yeah.
investigations come out, you start finding out all this stuff. But one of his friends, obviously he knew what was going on. He was worried about him. And, because these guys were in the Army Reserves together, this guy, Sean Hodgson, actually texted his their supervisor. I don't not exactly clear who, but he texted one of his superiors and said, I believe he's going to snap and do a mass shooting. And then 6 weeks later, that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
So obviously this person knew they were, they knew something was up. They were recognizing the signs. Did no one a lot of times what it is and what we deal with, especially when it comes to like schools and recognition of stuff, is
Yeah.
people don't know when it's okay, well, is this person just saying all this stuff or are they going to do it? Right. We boil it down to, is this person just want their say or do they want their say and their way? And that can be seemingly difficult, although we have specific things that we look for. But the idea is, we're starting to see that where people are at least trying to report or they're saying something like, hey, this is one of those weird things. So obviously there's all kinds of different, I'll attach the article in the episode details because there's
Yep.
all the different prevent indicators. There's all of these things building up and his buddy's going, hey man, this is odd. Then he was even diagnosed with some different issues. He was hospitalized for a couple weeks, admitted, to a psychiatric ward, those type of things.
Yep.
So he's constantly transmitting what's going on. So that's one example, and we'll jump into that. But then the other one falls into a different bucket, and this was this guy out here, Anthony Garcia. He was a member of what was called the Rivera 13 gang out in Los Angeles County, and he was arrested originally. I think it was like a driving on suspended license or unregistered vehicle, something like that, a moving violation. And then because he had all these gang affiliation stuff, they took pictures of his tattoos. And so he had at the top, it said Rivera kills. And then he had this other drawing of a shooting, and it was a helicopter, and it was at a liquor store and all this. So this other detective was going through stuff, and he goes, "Hey, wait a minute. This looks familiar to me." And he's looking at the picture of the tattoo, and he goes, "Hey, this is the crime scene from an
Right.
unsolved homicide from 4 years ago." So this guy literally tattooed the crime scene on him to show exactly what happened, and even his call sign, or whatever his nickname was Chopper, right? And so he
Hence
had
the
he had the
helicopter, right?
helicopter, a chopper, like
Yeah.
killing this person in front of the liquor store, exactly how it happened. I think I even read one story where the detective was like, even down to some of the angles of the shooting, like that's how accurate this
Right.
tattoo was. So that's a very obvious example of something, but sometimes it can be more subtle. So I wanted to start with those two, and just
Yeah.
this introduction about how humans are constantly on transmit with everything that we do. And it's just sort of tuning into that frequency is a general way we talk about it and look at it. Now we get into the weeds of how to actually do that. Can't do that on a podcast, but I think it's just some more of these examples. So I'm going to throw to you, Greg, to kind of start it off. And I know you had somewhere you want to at least start with the
Yeah.
discussion.
So
So
I would say this to your comments. I would say that if I was driving around with a friend and I said, "Hey, you know who's getting to be good looking? Your daughter," and I would love to rape her if she doesn't consent to sex. There would be an ass whooping. There would be
yeah,
a consequence.
yeah.
There would be a
Well,
court
even just at
case.
the first
Okay.
comment there, yeah,
So then the same thing. If I was driving around with a few of my friends and we said, "Yeah, let's go by the mall." Yeah, that's where I love to pick up the kids I molest. Okay, same thing.
yeah,
So when we say people are on transmit, sometimes people are very close to the bone and transmit details like the tattoo that are so incriminating that people have to say something. Hence the article about the main shooter, where a number of things came to light over and over and over. Look, you're saying, "Oh, you're jesting." No, I'm not jesting. I'm taking a look at Isla Vista. I'm taking a look at Elliot Rodger. I'm taking a look at Ted Kaczynski. I'm taking a look at all of these people that were on transmit with the dial wide open,
yeah.
to the point where people said, "Okay, it must be parody. It must be some sort of a joke," and that took their foot off the warning, danger, Will Robinson accelerator. What we're saying is that when you see these things, and it's tantamount to a rape or a murder or killing, I restrict it to life felonies, Brian,
Yeah,
but it's
it doesn't
an
matter. Yeah,
ideation and a fascination. Now you're talking about. So what do I mean by that? We're talking about tattoos, and it's funny to me that you take a look at the incident of tattoos in the prison system, U.S. prison system, and people that have tattoos are of a higher intellect than those that don't. I think that's amazing, and that's been tested and documented. The second part of that is that felons have a higher degree. Now, let's not conflate that and say felons are a higher intellect group, but there's a message there. The
yeah,
message is that just like Jay Leno, just like Larry King, after you're out of the bully pulpit, after you're no longer having the light shined on you and your opinion matters, you will still be on transmit. You will
right.
find a way, whether it's krill oil from the North Atlantic, or getting on a spot on a rom-com, just a walk on. The idea is, Brian, certain people, all people have to transmit all the time because that's our fragile ecosystem. But some people have to transmit even to the point where they'll incriminate themselves.
Yeah,
Evidence by the fact that, what do we have? We have the fifth, where you can plead the fifth because you don't want to accidentally incriminate yourself.
right.
That's up to other people to judge based on the evidence. So this is one of the few times where artifacts and evidence come from the horse's mouth because people can't shut up. And I'll give you an example, a social media example, like you did. I'm not on social media. but people listen to me, and every once in a while I'm accosted or met by somebody that goes, "Hey, I listened to your podcast," or "Hey, I saw you and Brian on some
On
form of
something.
social
Yeah.
media," right? And that's amazing to me. The
Yeah.
two most often comments I get are, "Why do I hate John Boyd?" Which I don't. I hate you
The
insisting on using the
interpretation of it.
OODA loop.
Yeah.
And the second one is, why do you keep bringing up the allegory of the cave? Because you're getting it wrong. So let's start, abandon OODA, but let's talk about Plato's allegory of the cave. Plato was writing, and Plato was trying to write as a slap in the face to the intelligentsia, because not everybody could read, not everybody understood it. So then when somebody else would read it, you would react. That was his idea. It was like making a film, and the cave was the theater. And then when you walked out and you were standing outside the theater, you go, "What the fuck was that?" And then the other guy would talk. And so Socrates narrating notional for Plato, and Glaucon is the guy outside the theater going, "What did we just watch?" So the whole idea, the hidden message of Plato's cave, is that all of us, the prisoners, can escape from ignorance by just taking that first step out of the cave. And the further you are back from that flame, the wilder the stories inside the cave get. Why? Because your intellect is on wide open. You're transmitting on wide open without any checks and balances. So we love that, because as a fly on the wall, or using a surveillance methodology, you can see people in their natural light. And when a person is either given a microphone or a camera on them, or writes a book, or is allowed to talk with other people thinking that their thoughts are private, they will be on transmit and release all of this information. So you escaping ignorance means that you can't go back in the cave. So the problem we use, the allegory, I guess, that you can't unring that bell. And what do we mean by that?
Yeah.
Once you tattoo something on your body, once you write it, once you play it, have rappers been convicted based on lyrics? Well, they certainly have gone to
Yeah.
court on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People,
Okay.
they've recorded and talked about crimes they
Yes.
committed in those songs, and those were used against them in court. And that was
So,
actually,
so why
remember,
can't a tattoo
yeah.
why can't a tattoo be a nonverbal confession? I apologize for cutting you off, but I want to make sure I get that out there, because I'll forget that.
No. I was just
Yeah.
mentioning that, but even the Key and Peele, the comedians, made a
Yes.
sketch about that as a joke, and then it happened years later in real life. But no, but about the tattoos and confession, I mean, it is. I mean, I mean, you're gonna have the argument that, oh no, this is, you can say whatever you want, have your
Yep.
attorney's gonna play that, but you're showing that how important. I mean, it's not unlike writing something down, or telling someone, or
Exactly.
or having a conversation and saying, yeah, I killed it. I mean, you're doing the same thing, you're just doing it permanently on your body.
Yeah, your actions are so powerful that the court has something in present memory recollected. I'm not going to remember the exact comment, but there's a thing that prosecutors and defense attorneys can use when they're talking about, like, a cop that used too much violence in an arrest, or when a prosecutor is trying to say, "Look, this fits a pattern." So the pattern that it fits is that it's so ridiculously close to something that happened again and again that it's logical to infer that this
That
was the
person.
original intent, and that the person is just repeating their behavior. So that repeated behavior, and I can't think of the exact name of the case law right now, is accepted by every court in the land in the United States, all the way up to U.S. Supreme Court. So they can actually bring things in and go, this on the 29th, and this 4 years later, and then this that we did yesterday, are so close to the pattern that this person used when they were coming through. Again, pattern recognition. And the analysis would be that even a person that doesn't know this man or woman and doesn't know the case would be led to believe that it was all a pattern of abuse that they did. And you can bring that into court. So that amazes me, because what we understand by law, by case law, by Supreme Court decisions, and then by TATS and by the allegory of the cave, is that there's certain information out there that we all slap the table on. We acquiesce. We say, yeah, I will stipulate that that's true. And then there's other secret insider, inside the velvet rope information that people let out through song, through story, through poem, right? Through their clothing, through their messages that they're trying to send to us. And that if we tune into that frequency, Brian, because everybody's transmitting all the time, even on those subtle wavelengths, I think what we're saying is that the subtle wavelengths is where the juice is sweeter, where we're really going to get into some interesting information, right? I mean, anybody can, we joke about the hang in there cat. Anybody could put the platitude up, right? But when you start getting into a degree of specificity, and we're back to the body art, the degree of specificity of tattoos is why it's not allowed as evidence, because it's not specific enough. But the cases we're talking about are two incidents where the information was specific enough that a reasonable person should have said, that's the exact thing, right? That's a very simple way of saying it.
So I want to do two things. First, because I want to go back to you brought it up with the allegory of the cave and kind of like, we would call those sort of failures in sense making. The people going, you're not seeing clearly what's going on out there. That's why you're assuming or inferring incorrectly. But I just kind of want to start with two. Let's try to answer this question as best as we can. But why are humans constantly on transmit? Like, what is that? I mean, meaning what? Because it's done in. We gave different examples of how that leaks out, right? Whatever medium it is, whether it's over social media, personal conversations, tattoos, the way you dress, how you cut your hair, all that stuff. It all tells me about you. But like, so what is it about us that we have to do that? Why are we always on transmit?
So that's such a great question. I'll give you a two-part answer. First, we have to acknowledge the fact that it is, in fact, ego-driven and that everybody has it. So I'll offer my evidence: selfies. The entire idea about selfies, it's about me. Look at me. And some selfies kill me. Some selfies are too close to the edge, and I fall off a bridge. And do all,
literally.
So the lure to making sure that I'm remembered is right there in a selfie. Now, part two. We come into this world screaming for attention the very second that we pop out or cut out. And when we go, we have to have a eulogy, other people talking about us, and lead us to the snowy or cold cemetery where there's a stone slab memorializing my last words. So we cannot get away from talking. We're in a little bit transmitting. In a little bit, we're going to hopefully get a chance to talk about Aaron Hernandez. I'll tell you this one thing about the Aaron Hernandez case is that it shows that he knows what's going on, because he writes "God forgives" backwards in a tattoo. Well, who is that intended for? That's intended for a motto for him.
When he's looking in the mirror.
Every time I look in the mirror, I have my personal accountability. One quick more. He had "Killer Inside" tatted after the convictions, and some of the cases were thrown out. Killer inside doesn't mean I'm a killer inside. It means I'm a killer and I'm going inside jail. He's telling people he understands. He's relating a story in my estimation, Brian. In my
I mean, he could have been looking at it as, there's a killer inside of me, is the way he looked at it. But either way, you do that. But that's another great example. And he even had, I think, the specific types of guns he used in those crimes. Because remember, he killed someone before the one that he got caught for and went to trial for. He killed someone down in Florida, I think it was. And then he had those guns tattooed on him by the whole tattoo that said "God forgives." I mean,
so what would the thing that you would not do, Brian? Okay, why would you invoke the fifth? Why doesn't an innocent person take the stand? Because you don't want to risk it specifically in a jury trial, right? So let me give you one more, and then I'll throw the towel in on this. O.J. Simpson. Okay, O.J. Simpson wrote a hypothetical book. Okay,
if I did it,
and the "if" was kind of tiny, and
that was from the lawsuit.
And so HarperCollins said, hey, we're publishing the book. And then all of the lawsuits came out and everybody said, hey, listen, we're going to cancel the book. And then the family came up, Nicole Brown Simpson.
That's what they did. They changed. What they did was they changed it. So I think they got
the artwork,
whatever it was, so that they could the "if" was like super, super tiny. So it just said, I did it.
And and then they had a whole bunch of stories and information. And then I can't remember the prosecutor's name, the female wrote her book about it, that
Clark.
Guilty as charged. Clark. But the idea here, Brian, is that we have to be tribal. We're not good alone. And to be a part of the tribe, we have to continuously prove our worth. And the easiest way to prove our worth is to demonstrate to others that we're worthy of something. So the earliest form of self-expression is a cave painting, cave art, okay, of some form. And what is it about? I know where fresh water is. I know where the hunting is. I know where we can gather firewood. Go look through it. I don't have to make that shit up. And when we take a look at it and see how old that stuff is, we understand that, look, I have to be seen. I have to be heard. The Iceman mummy found in the Alps was, from 3,250 BCE, the before Common Era, had 61 tattoos on his body. Brian, what was that? That was a message to everybody else. Hey, I'm the best guy at filleting a fish. Follow me to the river. Do you see what I'm saying? If I can't communicate with language, I'm going to find another way to communicate. And self-mutilation back then was a practice that I could get behind because it was easy to do. I stick a rod in the fire. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Or I carve it in stone on a cave.
Especially you're talking about communicating and maybe, I mean, this stuff goes back before the language that we know of it as today as language, right? Communication's been around long before language. Different interpersonal, interhuman communication. So there's only so many ways I can do that, especially if I'm interacting with people who I literally don't have the same grunts and clicks that your tribe does. Well, if I have something on my body that sends a message, this goes back to cave painting. They're finding even cave paintings that they think are even older than previously thought. So even pre-Homo sapien, there were cave paintings and drawings and different shapes and stuff like that all humans draw. But it's a method of communication is what you're doing. So it's wired in our DNA for this sort of communication, right? To be on transmit. And I think that really and you can get into this in a number of different ways and how important and how necessary that is for when you tie it's so necessary for survival. You just said it. Of as a human, I have to be I have to feel. That's an important word. Feel that I'm a contributing member to the group that I'm in, and that ties back to even to like why some people commit suicide and stuff. They feel that they're no longer contributing.
I've been ostracized.
Value. Well, whatever the reason is, they feel that they're not contributing anymore. So it's like, well, I'm no good to everyone. So I need to exit stage left, man, because I'm slowing everyone down. But that's hard. When we say hardwired, that is in our DNA biologically and physiologically. It'll manifest itself.
Chemically, you're exactly right.
And it comes out in different ways. But I just think that's from a historical point of why humans are on transmit. You can't not be on transmit.
You can't not, because you're helping me make a strong argument that all people need to express themselves, and the other side of the coin, champion their uniqueness. What do I mean by that? I have to be a member of this team and a contributing member that you take cave to cave to cave, and that torch survives. But I also need to be known as fire finder or fish catcher or whatever it is, right? And so you just talked about a gang member that is complicit in killing, and he had two things. He had emblazoned upon his flesh the thing that got him into the gang, his killing at the liquor store, murdering people. And the second part is, who am I, Brian? I'm Chopper.
That's Chopper. His identity.
So he has to have both. And you're also making a strong argument. Like, look, why do I cut myself? Because it's just for me.
I have control over it. Yeah.
I control that. Same reason that some people get tattoos. I control me. My body is my canvas. So as much as it's a part that I must be seen with this group, I want to associate. Look, I may want to associate with you, and you've never given me the opportunity or welcomed me in. So I go and I get a tattoo, and that tattoo
look, I'm part of
me. I'm part one way or the other. Accept me or don't accept me, but I'm part of that group. And so what we have is we understand that when people repress what they need to say, that there's a higher degree of anxiety. We don't sleep very well. Our stomach and including our stomach muscles, not just the chemistry of our stomach and our digestion, is all messed up. I can see that in our dog. I mean, you have a dog, and you know the same thing. So if you see that you're bad, or something happens like that, that can ruin an entire day for a dog. And so now you add the element that dogs don't understand space-time. So now there's a tremendous amount of anxiety, and a dog can be depressed. Well, if a fucking
It
dog can be depressed, then
that
your neighbor can be depressed enough to go kill 18
s-
people at
s-
a goddamn
so
bowling alley.
so obviously since we had the baby, the dog gets like less attention, right? Now I
Yes.
still try to, so I make sure I set out time to go throw the ball with her every day, do this because it's like she's because you can sense it.
Yep.
So we had the baby and the insurgent was playing with the baby on her bed. Well, here's the thing. That's where Bailey the dog sleeps. Dog sleeps on the
Man.
bed with her and then has a little, dog bed in the corner sometimes when she moves around a lot when she sleeps. So she'll get up, the dog will get up and go
Sure.
sleep in the corner, right? But that's her spot. She can chill there. She can sleep there. I love it because then, the insurgent's always got someone there with her and everything. And so she's playing a lot with the baby on her bed. Well, and then like she wasn't letting Bailey on the bed, right? When the baby was
Yep.
on there, obviously to like, hey, stay off, I don't want him because the dog will just accidentally, step on him or whatever. So sure enough, that day when that happened, uh the insurgent went in there to go to bed, and there's a big wet spot right there at the end of the bed.
Man.
And the
That's a message.
Bailey had peed right there, and we're like, what? And it was very clear. It was just like, wow, we instantly linked it like, okay, like but that was
Yep.
the way that the dog could transmit that I'm upset. This was my space. This was my spot. You guys are taking
Yep.
all this attention. I'm part of this fucking tribe too. Give me, what I mean, what are you doing? And it was like, okay. And we did, obviously cleaned it up and it was all good. And we said, all right, no more baby on the bed in there. Like that's the
Yep.
dog spot. Let's let her have her area just because she's part of the family too. I mean, she has to interact with us. So it was wild that you just brought that up and
It's
reminded me of that. And it just happened like a
it's
month ago.
such an important message. Everybody replay what Brian just said, because now in Maine, why did the shooter kill themselves?
Yep.
Because they were done transmitting.
Yep.
I am done. My message, will comply out here. And bam, when we take a look at Elliot Rogers, same thing. When my message was done, we take a look at Klebold and Harris. When my message was done, what did I do?
They
Now,
they
some
they
people
either do
choose
one,
to,
it's one or it's usually a
yes,
binary choice. It's kill themselves or give up
exactly. Now, why would I give up?
because I'm
Because
done.
I'm not done. I'm done
Well,
with the killing, Brian,
yeah.
but I'm not done with what? I'm not done unpacking me. So now I assume that Kip Kinkle, perfect example. Kip Kinkle, how many interviews can one, school shooter give? And Kip has given them from his teen years all the way now till he's an adult and he's getting old and losing his hair and his teeth. Why? Because I still have things to say. You see the parallel, Brian, to me is so strong. I'm done, so I die, or I've still got a message, so I live. And
And
when we look at it at that simplest level, we understand that getting out of the cave was freeing ourselves from the intellectual darkness. You're not listening to me, so I'm getting a fucking gun and I'm going to go to school and shoot a bunch of fourth graders in Uvalde. Why?
yeah,
Because I'm bored and I have a message. Well, my message isn't very strong, so I'll
well,
exemplify it at the muzzle of a gun,
yeah,
and
because
now you'll
you're
have to
you're
listen
gonna
to
get
me.
the intention because and
Yeah,
that's so why not really why is it, but can you explain sort of the difference? Because that's definitely going. Some humans like this are you can see it a mile away. They're constantly talking
yep,
about what they're going to do. They're literally
yep,
tattooing it on their body, spreading the world. Now, some people choose to almost go internal with it. So
yes,
rather than expressing it outwardly, they go internal and there's still it's the same issue, but they almost it's seemingly harder to identify. That's where like sort of the rage happens, where all of a sudden
I agree.
someone blows up, and then there's it's a horrible video. I can't remember where it was from, but the guy because he has a camera in his car, and he's all pissed off because the road's blocked because of that parade that was going on, and he's arguing with his wife on it. He's yelling and screaming. He's going. I mean, you see it go, and it hits to rage, and he goes right into that parade, and he starts hitting
Yep,
people, and you're
yep,
going that guy was going internal for so long. Now it was manifesting. I'm sure people saw him going like, "Oh, that guy used to blow up on people," or "This was angry."
yep,
But sometimes people choose to go internal with it, and that's when they still, all right, now I'm going to create my plan. That's the Ted Kaczynski. All right, I'm going to go
yes,
move to the shed in the middle of nowhere, but I still need to get my message out. So I'm going to type on a typewriter and ride a bike a few miles to the post office to mail this
precisely.
so someone still gets my message. So it's the same concept, just sort of manifested differently, right?
Yeah,
And what and part of why I'm bringing that up is that, you know, it I you can identify it either way, no matter which method someone chooses to use. And that's why we always do the most people want their say, not their way, but the
Yep.
danger lies in of someone who wants their say and their way, right?
And both.
And
Exactly. Exactly.
so it's an oversimplified way to look at it, but it's not. I mean, it's really, if we think about it from these lenses, and that's why we talk about it, and especially tattoos and clothing and all that stuff.
Yep.
It just, but it actually, it ties right back to, which why I love you brought it up, the allegory of the cave. Am I outside the cave looking at this clearly, or am I still looking over a few people at the shadows on the wall and
Yep.
constructing my own story about what's happening? Am I getting that
It's
pure
such a
signal? So I
you're
just want to bring
you're
that
so
up.
smart. Right. Listen, you're so smart because when you read it, you understood that prisoners was a metaphor.
Yeah, yeah,
Prisoners chained
yeah.
to the
It's
wall
just
in a cage. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah,
When he
exactly.
sees Marley's
Yep.
ghost, right? Okay. The whole idea is that I'm carrying all this weight. So what's the cave? The cave is this movie theater again, and ideas are getting bashed around in there. And the further you are from the screen, so two old people going, what did he say? Oh, that's the
Yeah.
and Gilbert Gottfried again. But he said
Is that
this,
Waldorf
and
and
if you get
Astoria up there?
yeah,
The
if you
two old
get that
guys, the
wrong,
Muppets.
right. But if you get it wrong, if you get some of the information wrong, you're going to extrapolate that further, and you're going to come up with the wrong conclusion. And so Plato knew this. So we have this need to express ourselves, and what happens is that anytime that we feel that we can't, that triggers our fight or flight. And so now what happens is we go, holy shit, does the clan know something I don't? They're keeping
Yeah.
me quiet. Is there a problem? Did I make a mistake? There's the anxiety, and now that goes into violence, meaning fighting, meaning being argumentative, or real physical violence. Why do you think domestics are so dangerous?
Oh,
Domestics
yeah.
brew as a percolator for years and years and years, or like a flare, they're really hot for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden you're going to lose that, or you feel you're going to lose that, or you feel that you're misunderstood. So when we take a look at most people that communicate in a manner like tats or art or a song or rap, okay, most of the time it's self-expression. Some of the time it's I need more attention. Your dog, perfect example.
Yep.
And some of the time it's rebellion. Hey, F you, this is who I am. So I've got that sort of hey wanker, mentality from the Brit,
Yeah.
gosh, I can't think of his name. I loved him. The punk rocker Sid Vicious.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
So then we go and we have William Teacher Atkinson, where all of his tattoos are a personal narrative intended solely for him,
Yeah.
not for his loved one, not for the other people that are around him. And then we've got a couple, like our friend from Third Marine, which he got all of his tattoos after a night of drunken frippery,
Yeah.
and no two have anything to do with anything else. So why? One, anytime that we start talking about secret or privates, it's a form of thrill seeking. It's a form of risk taking, because, hey, what are the type of games that we play? Well, one time I did this. Well,
Hmm.
truth or dare. Why? Because they get us close to fear or anxiety. They make our pulse increase, Brian. And so now we want to recreate that behavior.
Yeah.
We already talked about displaying our individuality, being unique. And then the third reason is to boost our confidence, whether it's truth or a lie. Now, listen to what I'm saying, folks that are listening to me. I want to boost my confidence, so I say these things about me. Well, I could be a pathological liar that
Right.
needs a repeated boost of confidence.
Yes.
You get it? Okay. Or I could just have it as part of my job, the used
Hmm.
car salesman, right? Where, hey, I want to boost your confidence. You're such a good guy. I want to get you into that car. Let me go talk to my manager. And I go out and I get a Funyun bag and have
Yeah.
some Coke and wait 15 minutes and come out and go, well, hey, here's the hard part. So the type of message that I put out there is so you understand how important I am to the rest of the tribe. And
Hmm.
when you don't listen, I have to shake the cage a little bit. And that's when the beast comes out, Brian. So rage is I'm being misunderstood. The incongruent message to my brain means I have to mask my emotions. And guess what? They'll only put up with that for so long before they break out of that shell like that little fucking lizard in Jurassic Park. And
Yeah.
we have to be prepared for that, because look what happened on Jurassic Park. All that shit went sideways fast, right? So why can't we control rage? Because rage has to run its course. Why? Because nobody listened to me, and now that
It,
trigger that I had,
Yeah.
that sense mechanism that I had is going to force me to act this out. And we don't want to act it out. Humans don't want to act it out, but why do we? Because it's a survival mechanism. We have to. So the tribe takes me as a legitimate member. Yeah. And
No, and
if I don't, man,
it
violence is coming.
and this is sort of the big so what behind a lot of this too is don't is almost I know we're talking about a lot of different things, but we're tying it back to more so like neuroscience and
Yes,
really how you the hardwired DNA in all human beings, because don't overcomplicate it. I mean, meaning don't extrapolate and come up with some story when these things happen, just because it fits your narrative or it fits what you
of
think you
course.
want it to be. Because I see that a lot with different analysis stuff, especially when you get into anything with psychology, because there's so much pop psychology BS and studies coming out all the time, which really add no value. I think that and that's great if you want to research something at an academic institution and get some insight, but
Hmm.
that doesn't mean anything, because that could be in a couple of years people go, oh well, you can't actually replicate that, or that doesn't work, because that's what happens with 90% of the stuff that comes out. And so this analysis is not good because it's unhelpful, and it's unhelpful because it doesn't give me any tools to recognize any of these things.
Yes,
And this is why we boil some of these things down to very simple concepts. All humans are on transmit. Okay, what is this person teaching me? What are they transmitting to the world right now? And writing that down on a yellow pad is the clearest way to understand it. And you
yes,
don't have to make something up. It's not unknown. You can say, well, how do I do that with my family? Or when do I get to that point, right? And so what kind of pisses me off with a lot of this stuff too is like, especially with tattoos, and everyone's go. I've had someone tell me they were reading someone's tattoos and, oh, this means that and that means this, and you can tell by the curvature here and the symbol here. It's like, no, that's what it means to you. You don't
yep,
know what it means to that person, because you'll go
yep,
up to that person, they're like, oh, I thought this was cool, man. I saw it in the tattoo book and I took 3 images they had at the tattoo shop and I jammed them together and said, put this on me. And it's like, oh, okay. So you have no idea
right,
even sometimes what it is that you're saying. And that's you see that when it's the difference between the gang graffiti showing ownership of that area, right, of that street, of that
right.
block, right, versus the punk kid with a can of spray paint who draws a swastika on the school because he knows what, well, that's going to get some attention and that's going to piss people
Exactly. I
off, or
write dick on a
yeah,
car or
right,
the
yeah,
F word on a
yeah,
garage with a black paint.
I draw a penis on
I'm a
someone's
hero.
car. Like, it's like,
I'm a hero to the pre-adolescents, right? Come on.
it's not the same thing, and
Yep,
and 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 it's the intent behind the message, and but also understanding that these are psychological and sociological imperatives. I have to do this as a human. I have to
yep,
get things off my chest. It will manifest itself in some manner, either externally, internally. It may build up for a while. Everyone's can do it a little bit different, but we all do the same stuff. I
we
mean,
sure do.
and so this is also why I wanted to talk about it, and that's why just using that term, all humans are on transmit. All right, well, what is this person telling me? What are they
Yep.
teaching me?
So,
And
so the simplest, Brian, the simplest way to encapsulate what you're saying there is to think about ourselves first, and
yes,
what does our wall of shame show? Where's that room or that one
yeah,
area where I
yeah,
keep my knickknacks, where I
yeah.
keep my coins, which used to mean something, and have taken on an entirely new meaning now? Where is that place where I keep those
It,
certificates? Is it in a drawer, Brian, or
yeah,
are
was
they
it
up
on the
on the
wall?
wall
Yeah,
where I can see them when I'm, typing or whatever? If we take a look at that, because look, my clothes is meaningless. I assign no value whatsoever to how I dress, to my haircut, to how I'm seen by other people, because I don't give a shit about that. But I send a strong message in other things that I do, right? So maybe I got to shine that light back on me and say, what am I transmitting? What is the message that I'm giving? Because I don't want to be seen as I don't give a damn about those things. I want to show that those things are less important than the words that are coming out of my mouth or the words that I write. You see, so that balance can be misconstrued by the receiver, and that's why we always give the admonition: listen, you have to tune in to the frequency that's out there, rather than create a new radio station based on shit What do teardrops tattoo mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I know what they mean to a guy from MS-13, the same as the
Yeah.
horns.
Yeah.
But in that context, if I go outside of that, the relevance changes. So I have to understand I'm on transmit when I come up to a person, and I've got to turn down the volume on me and turn up the volume on them to get good understanding. Now, sometimes turning down the volume on me means that I have to acquiesce. I have to go with the flow. I have to back off, and that's called most times scientifically listening. And I
Yeah.
have to listen, Brian,
Well,
with my
yeah.
whole body.
You get
I
look,
really
listen, and
do.
feel. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
have to sit down and I have to come down off of transmit far enough that I can actually hear the signal. Where do things like you can't see the forest for the trees? Where does
Yeah.
that come from?
Yeah.
Exactly the argument that we're putting forth here, that everything that you do is a message, and that message is going to be read by those people around you, whether you intended it to be read or not.
Yeah, no, I have to do that sometimes with my wife when she gets upset because something going on at work and then another thing and everything's stacked on and I got
Yep.
this and that's happening and I'm like she'll go on and on and I'm like and I was looking at her and be like when did have you eaten yet today? She's like
Right.
what? And I'm like have you eaten yet today? She's like
Yep.
oh no, I actually got busy. I got calls. Like why don't you have a sandwich and then think about that again because you might just be hungry and
Right.
sometimes it's that she's like oh you're right I just I was like look man like it's all building up. So you don't know which contributing factor to your mood right now is the most significant. And in that case,
Yes.
it's like, it's like to have the Snickers bar, right? It's you might
Listen, you are so onto something. So you know that Shelly's mom around the holiday weekend had to go to the emergency room. She's been in
yeah.
the hospital now for the last couple of days. And the idea is that I knew she was sick and what the prognosis was because she failed to transmit. Because every day she texted, she called. When you talked to her, there was a certain tempo, a meter, a timbre to how she talked and the topics that she would talk about. And guess what? No comms, no comms, no comms. So I was really worried and talking to Shelly about flying back. Then all of a sudden there came a couple of burst messages from the wilderness, and it was like,
Yeah.
this food blows. My room is cold. And I go, oh my God, she's
Okay.
going to make it.
She's
She'll
gonna
be
be fine.
fine.
Yeah.
Why? Because she was back on transmit. So simply that simple of a comparison. Your dog comparison is brilliant. When I see that, I have to assign value to it. And we're so egotistical. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Shelly's lost sleep and she's not been
Yeah.
eating and she's worried about her mom. And then I go, well, what about me? What's
Yeah.
for breakfast? And why do we do
Yeah.
that? Because when it comes
We,
down to it,
it's about our own
whose point
survival.
of view
Yeah.
it is?
How I well
Our
that's
point of view is so
that
strong that we have
that
to understand that.
that's the dog one too. Why is your dog
Yes,
always cheerful and happy? Because you feed it. You give that thing
exactly.
life. Like
Yep,
if and if if something happens to you, your dog's going, man, if something happens to this guy, then he's
exactly.
I might not get fed. So I better keep them happy. And that's so true on so many different
So
levels.
simple.
But you can also even with what you brought up with Shell's mom is a
Yeah.
great example too. You're worried she's in the hospital, she's sick, and then she's complaining about the food and the temperature in your room. Okay, so now I know where their head's at. Why?
Yep.
Because if it was something, if there was something more serious or very going on, would she be complaining about the food? Wouldn't even have a thought. Probably wouldn't even be
Exactly.
hungry.
I have to get up early this morning for surgery and I'm worried,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
that's
yeah, exactly. Brian, that balance that you just pointed out is the key to understanding another human.
yeah.
But when we go in with the amp at 11, shout out there to
This one
Spinal Tap.
goes to 11.
The problem is that we can't hear that signal to noise. And in every signal, there's noise, and in all noise, there's a signal.
Yeah.
And Brian, if we don't start taking the hay away to look for that needle, then we're never going to find it. And so we can go through our life. Look, most people go through their lives uninspired, and they go to work, and they do a good thing, and then they die, and the influence around them is very small. Okay, other people have big lives. It doesn't matter which you choose. The idea is that you can choose another life if you change the way your message goes. Messaging. Do we have messaging? Where's Luca Brasi? How did they tell us about him? He slept with the what? The fishes.
Fishes.
How
Yeah.
simple was the communication? A fish that was wrapped in newspaper that meant something to everybody that was in that room. That's you, man. You can be that. You can be the one that's choking, Luca Brasi and dragging the body down to the water, or you can be the person that's making the renaissance, that's creating the change. It's you. And Brian, why do some people sit in their basement and carve the barrel off of their shotgun? Okay, because they fail to see that they make that difference. They fail to see that they impact the lives around them. So they say, well, I'm not impacting the life. Watch me.
Watch
I'll show you
this.
how I impact, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're in this business, which we are, and other people are in this business, they got to stop. I'll give you an example. If I see one more article about, hey, here's the 10 books I'm reading, hey, kiss my ass. Enjoy reading your books. What are you doing with that information?
Right.
What has it done to you? How have you look? I click thumbs up. Anybody knows me knows I just have LinkedIn on every one of these self-help posts where the person's working out or they're losing weight or they're doing something like that. You know why? Because I'm seeing it. I'm
Yeah.
seeing you walk your talk. But
Yeah.
the other one with, hey, here's the top 15 that, General Adams wants me to read before I'm 35 years old. Holy shit. The
Yeah.
knowledge is out there. Don't be afraid of the knowledge. What are we? We're right back to the cave. One of the great things about Plato is Plato was always poking the bear. So
Hmm.
Plato goes, hey, listen, you can't go back in the cave and save the other prisoners. And everybody took that as a metaphor for really going in the cave and pulling the people out of the burning house. That had nothing to do with it. What he
It's
means is that you can't unsee what you've seen.
yes.
So you can never be that
You
person again, you
yeah.
know?
And well, that and there's exactly, well, you can't unlearn something, right? You can't
Exactly.
not know something and go, oh well, I'm gonna just crawl back in there because now you know what it's really like. And
Yep.
to the other point of that too is that they have to sort of see it for themselves, right?
Exactly.
You can't
That's the
go
whole
in
idea.
there and say, look, man, here's the answer. And then they all go, oh, got it. Let's all leave here now. That's not how it will ever work. Someone
And
has
that's
to
why
come to
I
that
always add the
realization.
story, Brian. I add the story of the little kids and the old people that are further from the flame. And they can't really hear what's going on in the next room, Brian. But through the flickers of the frame, they see them dancing around and talking about things. So they create their own reality. That's what we do. We
Right.
create another's reality by looking at them and saying, look at that haircut. Look at their shoes aren't shined. Look at this. And we
Hmm.
come up with a value system. What we're not doing is we're not recognizing the patterns that are coming out through that person's verbal and nonverbal communication, through their actions and their statements. We're not measuring that. What we're doing is we're doing the knee-jerk reaction to something, and then that becomes the reality. And we do that not understanding that that will stick with us as a file folder for the rest of our lives.
No, and I actually I take that approach with some of our social media stuff that I do, especially on Instagram too. Like, you get different comments and there's some that are obvious that someone's just being a jackass or whatever, and that's fine. I
Yep.
usually don't respond. Not responding is generally the best rule to follow. And then some people who say stuff and they clearly think they're right or whatever, and I try to go, well, what do I want our followers to see? Like, what do I want them to
Yes.
see as my response? How do I want them to see me handle this? So I keep it sort of very dry and like, hey, can you point to where in the post I actually said that? You know what I mean? And they can't because they inferred information
Yes.
incorrectly, right? They took it the wrong way. And then I always say, hey, my intent with this post was this. If that wasn't clear, can you help clarify that for me? And then
Yep.
sometimes you get people like, oh, well, it said this. And I go, oh, hey, I see that. I got it. Thank you. That helps me going
Frame
forward,
it better. Sure.
be clear. And to the point where some people argue with me and sometimes they'll message. And I had a guy who was like, well, you can't say this. I was like, yeah, no, you can. And this is why. And okay, this. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, well, I don't think that. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, should I keep engaging with this guy? And then he finally goes, the guy's like, well, hey, and this was not my intent, but he goes, well, hey, I looked at your textbook. It's kind of expensive. Can you give me a discount if I order it? And I was like, okay. And I gave so the guy went from arguing with me on
Right.
social media to spending a couple $100 on
Yep.
on our book. And it was not it was just to be clear, I just kept reiterating the
He
same
came out of
thing.
the cave.
He came to the realization like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. And then guess what his response was? Because you can tell from the person, he wanted to know more, right? He
Right.
really did. He wanted to understand it, but he was also had his own opinions and was coming in with sort of that bias from his opinions, but
Yes.
that he came to the realization. So, you can do that stuff, and just as long as it's clear on what that your message is, but you have to know what your message is. You have to
Exactly.
know what it is that you're transmitting first before you can kind of clearly see that. Because I might
Right.
not know that in other areas, but when it comes to our content, what I'm putting out, well, I fucking know what it means, and I know what I'm
Yes.
trying to get
Yeah.
across.
And
Do I
so,
miss the mark a little bit sometimes? Well, of course, because
of course, you
that's going
don't
to
have to like
happen.
me to read
Yeah,
my message and
right,
infer something from it, right?
right.
And you brought up two very good points, although they were sort of hidden in the dialogue. I just want to revisit them so people don't miss them. One, you're not for everybody,
Right.
and just understand that.
Yeah.
Meaning that there are some people that no matter how hard you try, they just don't give a damn. And the second is that we deal in facts. So if a fact through science or math or geography or something comes to light, and we now know more than we knew before, we will change. That's science. Okay. So first part of it, I'm not for everybody. So yesterday we were in a meeting and I made a joke about kissing the general's ass. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the grumpy people in the meeting didn't get it. Hey, why don't you kiss my ass? Yeah, you missed the joke completely. So
Yeah.
sit and wait. I'll call your number in
Settle
a little
down,
while.
Francis.
You get what I'm saying? And so my thing is that my message is and has always been consistent. So me saying that didn't surprise you. You know my sense of humor, and you know I'm not afraid to mix it up, right? So you weren't insulted by that, and the people at the meeting shouldn't have been, because they should have learned to expect it from me. And I have to be careful if I go into a new place and start there. I might be too loud, meaning I'm at 11, and the people need me at a 2. So
Yeah.
that's me. That's a me thing. Then the other part of it is that, hey, part of it's a you thing. Okay. So if my message is consistent and I'm telling only the truth, unless you can convince me that your truth, okay, just because you go, yeah, but I don't agree with you. That's what's happened to the law now is people
Yeah.
go, yeah, well, I know it's a law, but I don't agree with it. Well, you
It's like,
don't have that
okay.
right. Okay, we're in a
Yeah.
democracy.
Well,
So what
write
we
your
all voted,
congressman. I don't know.
right?
Like,
We all voted about this shit. And so I get a kick out of that. And so that, for lack of a better term, two-pronged standard to me is very important. I don't say things to be argumentative. I say things because I want people to realize them in the same way I came to realize them. And what is that? That's walking out of the cave. And what is that? Understanding now that I see it in the clear light of day, vampires dragging him in the sunlight. I'm want to say that a lot, that I can't go back. And the problem is that the Uvalde shooter wanted to go back. He wanted to go
yeah.
back to the time before. Why did he kill his grandmother? Because or shoot her in the head. I don't think he killed her. Remember, a lot of stories going on in this
Yeah.
immense head. Why did he shoot her? Because he knew he couldn't come back, and he knew he wasn't gonna. Chapman, Texas Tower. Why
Yeah.
did he shoot and kill
Whitman,
his
right?
mom and then his girlfriend? Whitman, rather.
Yeah.
Chapman's yet another one.
Yeah.
Why? Because I know I'm not coming back. So you got to listen to those type of frequencies. Why am I leaving the car running out in front of the nightclub? Because I have no intent of valet parking that son of a bitch. I'm
Yeah. The
going in and
door.
killing it. I'm never
Yeah.
coming out.
Leaving the door
Yeah.
open because I'm never coming back. Yeah. No.
No, it's subtle messages, Brian, are just as important as the loud, bombastic ones that say, "Here I come,"
Yeah.
and we have to be equally as conscious of the fact that every one of those forms of self-expression are important, because the narrative that I create might not be the narrative that I'm reading.
Yeah.
I have to come off of my pulpit, and I have to shut up for a minute, and I have to listen to what's being said, and I have to compare that. I have to create an explanatory storyline and constantly challenge it. And if I don't constantly challenge it, then I'm just buying into rhetoric. And that's
Yeah.
why some of the movements that are going on right now worry me, because there is a person that I respect some of their posts on LinkedIn, and then all of a sudden their neuro-linguistic side of the house comes out, and they go, "Hey, we do the same thing." Well, no, we don't. And then
Yeah.
another person that says, "Hey, body language is hugely important, so I see that we're in the same line of work." No, we're
No,
not.
it's not. Yeah.
You want to listen to me about body
Yeah.
language? I'll tell you
Yeah.
about body language, right?
Yeah.
But now, if you're talking about hypothesis testing, Brian,
Yeah, that's
you got
different.
me. I'm
No,
in.
and kind of goes back to goes back to Plato in the Allegory of the Cave of coming out of the cave, or what was the South Park episode where they did about Tom Cruise?
Oh
Remember?
my
Come
God.
out of the closet,
The
Tom. Something
closet. Come
like
on,
so
Tom. We're
so
sued.
so no, they passed the legal standard on their end. Maybe
Yeah, but
not so
we
much on
didn't.
us.
We
Yeah.
didn't just now because we just
So
openly said he's
yeah,
gay.
but it was referencing the TV show.
Yeah.
But the so no, it goes back to that allegory of the cave, right? And it goes back to, kind of seeing things for what they are and
Yeah.
making sense out of it correctly. And that's why we offer those kind of simple ways of looking at it of people on transmit. And I'm being okay with not knowing what the whole story is and just being able to call the important pieces of evidence, the important artifacts, the important what's the pure
Yes.
signal. Just understanding that is good. I'm never going to know the full story. I'm never going to know specifically maybe what this person's was doing this for, but you can determine their intent, you can determine their future behavior based on what they've done in the past, and knowing that they're always on transmit is just writing those things down as those examples, and you can kind of come up within the situation what that
Totally agree.
can mean. I think it's a little bit easier than people think if you know how to look, how to listen, how to feel, how to see it clearly without your own kind of sort of preconceived notions. And I know everyone talks about biases, and that's
Yeah. Of
great, but there's cognition biases that you need to worry about,
course there are.
and that's kind of what we're talking about here, I think.
So let me throw this at you. My last statement on this is that we jumped in and out of tattoos based
Hmm.
on the fact of Chopper's
Well,
tattoo.
well, and they're great examples to talk
They
about
are,
everything
because
we
if
talk
you're
about.
willing
Yeah,
to,
yeah, something
mar your flesh for life,
permanently.
that's pretty important.
That,
So
yeah.
when I go back to Aaron, the folks understand, I do not care whether he did it or not because I wasn't involved with the case. If you asked me to look at it, I could look at it, the evidence, and draw a reasonable conclusion and give you my expert opinion. What I'm saying, and I'm sorry that he likely committed suicide. I'm sorry that he felt that was the only way out. I'm sorry that he had a rough life. What I'm trying to tell you is that he used his body as a movie screen and
Hmm.
portrayed some images that needed to be addressed. That's what I'm saying. So use that example. If you have somebody stuck on transmit and they're not wavering from their signal, you're probably getting a pure signal. So hypothesis test it. Look at what patterns they're using in and out of their life with their relationship. And I go back and defend what I said at the very beginning. If somebody started talking to you about rape, or, hey, I'm selling fentanyl to that school down the road because I don't give a shit about those kids, okay, you would take action. But that message is
It's
coming
not.
through loud and clear in
You're just
other
other
factors that we're
forms.
not
Yeah.
considering. So we have to make sure that we turn our volume down a little bit from 11 and turn theirs up a little bit and try to get the most pure signal before we do a knee jerk and just draw an unreasonable conclusion. Brian, I would posit that an unreasonable conclusion is much more dangerous than coming up with a reasonable conclusion to you that the court finds, okay, well, you didn't know this information. Would that change it? And yes, I would change it. You get the point? I
Yeah.
mean, sticking with something that's the round peg, square hole is going to damage for a good long time. Not just the case you're in, but tomorrow and months later and years later, and how you deal with people. So you got to
Yeah,
stop.
and and then the factor of time, right?
Yes.
What is it over time? The longer the period of time, the more reasonable your conclusion can be. Because if you've seen those things happen, those patterns over time is the biggest one. I mean, and I
Hence the
use
main
it.
shooter and a person that was close to him writing something that was
Well,
damning. Hey,
and
somebody's got to do something. I think this guy's going to be a mass killer. Come on.
yeah, and you can you can assume certain things based purely on behavior and math and how humans operate. Meaning, if you said someone said, "Hey, I quit smoking 2 weeks ago. How long do you think I'll make it?" And I would say right there, 2 more weeks. And then if they came back to me and said, "All right, it's been 4 weeks. How long do you think I'll make it?" I go, "Another 4 weeks." And they'll come back to me at 8 weeks and they
Yep.
go, meaning as long as you've been doing it is as long as you will continue to do it. So the
Yep.
longer you've been doing something, the more likely you are going to continue doing that. And so, the time element is a really important factor.
I would add to that that not all cues are equally weighted. Oh my
No.
God, if I had $1 for every time I said that in public, and I still don't think people understand. So you remember the Gifford shooting, where the shooter got the bag, loaded the weapons into the bag, got extra ammo, stole the family's car, and drove to the location at the mall where Gifford was speaking to the public before an election, and they took out the gun and shot people. How many clues do you have to have? Okay, listen, a ne'er-do-well that's got mental problems. I'm transfixed with firearms. I tell you that I'm going to make a message, and the message is going to be resounding. And then I start loading. It reminds me of Talking Heads, one of my favorite groups ever. Got us a van loaded with weapons, packed up and ready to go. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't need more cues. I need to do something. And then people say, well, what would I do? That's the wrong answer. The answer is enlist the aid of others, and whether that aid is mental health, or a doctor, or a close family friend, or a priest, or the gosh damn cops, whatever it is, Brian, that's the point. And when the guy in Maine enlisted the aid of others, it fell on deaf ears, or
Yeah.
appears to have fallen on deaf ears from
Yeah.
what we read.
Yeah. And no, I think that's a good spot to sort
Yeah.
of bring it in for a landing. And if anyone has any questions about this, obviously too, we have the Patreon site you can check out, and you can just message us on there, and we go on there and do a recap and everything like that, and answer any questions and dive into it. And you can always reach out to us at leftofcraig@gmail.com. But we went over a lot, and it tied back to, I love how you go all the way back to Plato, with the allegory of the cave, and even to the point of a legal standard of how humans are untransmit, that we literally have the Fifth Amendment, so that you don't, because you
Exactly.
brought, I just because
Transmitted too
I
much,
forgot that.
buddy.
Yeah, I forgot it. Well, you brought up a good point where, you know, you go, why, if the person's innocent, why won't they testify? And their attorneys go, no, they might say something that
Exactly.
is going to accidentally incriminate themselves. And
Or the
same thing.
person goes, look at that body language there, it's hiding
Yeah.
something, and
Yeah.
we don't need that, you know?
And so that's
Yeah,
the point, that whether they're guilty or innocent, you don't want them speaking either way, because
you're exactly right.
humans are constantly on transmit, and it will get inferred incorrectly. It will be put into the wrong category of importance, or whatever. So that was my cousin and me. I killed the guy. I killed him. You know what I mean? They're reading it
Exactly.
out in
Why do
court.
we use that all the time? See, Your Honor?
And so
Oh yeah.
they said right here,
Cognitively
I
close
killed
enough,
him.
buddy. Yep.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Like I said, you could check out the Patreon site. We got even more coming, and stay in touch, and that we can stay on top of what we're doing and where we're going. We got a busy year, and we got a
Busy year.
ton of stuff
Thank
coming
God.
out. So we're super excited. We're excited about the change in the podcast here coming real soon. So get on board with that now, and you'll reap the benefits as it goes forward. I guess I'll put it that way. That's
Yep.
my little nudge. But thanks everyone for tuning
Well, and
in.
we've also found that all you got to do to get a discount on the book is call Brian an ass,
Yeah,
apparently.
oh,
And
that's
then,
true. I
I don't know.
mean,
What message are we sending? I'm
someone's listening
kidding.
to that and goes, Brian doesn't feel validated and wants to,
Exactly.
so, whatever.
Yeah. Stop
All right.
hiding in your own cave. Come
Yeah,
out and share the light with us.
come on out. Come on out, Tom. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and don't forget that training changes behavior.